March 27th, 1934. The Cotton Club, Harlem, 11:47 p.m. 12 people were in the bar when Lucky Luciano walked through the front door. 4 couples at tables near the stage. 2 men drinking alone at opposite ends of the bar. The bartender polishing glasses. The cigarette girl making her rounds and sitting on a stool in the middle of the bar, nursing his third whiskey of the night, was Benjamin "Benny the Rat" Feinstein. Everyone in Harlem knew Benny was a snitch. The cops knew it. The gangsters knew it. Even Benny knew everyone knew. He'd been feeding information to the NYPD for 8 months, ever since they'd arrested him on a weapons charge and offered him a deal, talk or do 5 years at Sing Sing. Benny talked. He'd given them names, addresses, shipment schedules, meeting locations. 3 arrests had already come from Benny's information, 2 bootleggers and 1 numbers runner. Small fish, but fish nonetheless. The problem with being a known informant isn't that you get killed immediately. It's that you become invisible. People stop talking to you, stop doing business with you, stop acknowledging your existence. In the underworld, a snitch isn't killed right away. He's isolated, allowed to live in a kind of social death, until someone decides it's time to make it permanent. Benny the Rat had been living in that limbo for weeks. Nobody would hire him. Nobody would drink with him. Even the bartenders served him reluctantly. But Benny kept coming to the Cotton Club because he had nowhere else to go. Because in his mind, if he acted normal, kept drinking, kept showing his face, maybe people would forget. Maybe the heat would die down. Benny was wrong. Lucky Luciano walked across the Cotton Club's main floor without looking at anyone. No bodyguards, no entourage, just Lucky in a dark suit. White shirt, fedora pulled low. He walked straight to the bar, straight to where Benny the Rat was sitting. The 12 witnesses saw him coming. The bartender saw him coming. Even Benny, halfway through his whiskey, looked up and saw Lucky Luciano standing 2 feet away. Benny's face went pale. His hand trembled. Whiskey sloshed in his glass. Lucky didn't let him finish. He reached out, grabbed a fistful of Benny's hair, and slammed his face down onto the wooden bar. Crack. The sound echoed across the club like a gunshot. Benny's nose broke on impact. Blood exploded across the polished wood. Before Benny could scream, Lucky pulled his head back up and slammed it down again. Crack. Benny's forehead split open. More blood. The bartender dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor. One of the women at the tables gasped. Her date grabbed her arm, pulled her back. Nobody moved to help Benny. Nobody even thought about it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications, like the video, and comment. More true Bruce Lee stories are coming. Lucky pulled Benny's head up a 3rd time. Benny's face was a mess of blood and broken bone. His nose was flattened. His left eye was already swelling shut. Blood ran down his chin, dripped onto his shirt, pooled on the bar. Lucky looked at him for a moment, at this pathetic broken man who'd chosen survival over loyalty, and then slammed his face down again. Crack. The bar cracked. Not Benny's skull, the actual wooden bar. A splintered fault line appeared in the polished surface. Lucky pulled Benny up a 4th time. Benny was barely conscious now. His eyes were rolling back. His mouth hung open. Blood and saliva dripped from his lips. The 12 witnesses watched in absolute silence. This wasn't a beating. This was a public execution. Not of Benny's life, of his dignity, his humanity, his right to exist in this world. Lucky slammed Benny's face into the bar. A 5th time. Crack. Benny went limp. Lucky held him there for a moment, pressed face down on the blood-soaked bar, then let go. Benny slumped off his stool and collapsed onto the floor. He didn't move. Just lay there in a spreading pool of his own blood, unconscious, possibly dead. Lucky straightened his jacket, pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, wiped the blood off his hands carefully, methodically. Then he turned to face the 12 witnesses, made eye contact with each one. The bartender, the cigarette girl, the 4 couples, the 2 solo drinkers, all of them frozen, all of them terrified, all of them understanding exactly what they'd just witnessed. Lucky's voice was calm, almost conversational. "Next time you see a rat, you tell me, I'll handle it." Nobody responded. Nobody nodded. Nobody moved. Lucky dropped the blood-stained handkerchief on the bar next to Benny's unconscious body. Then he turned and walked toward the back of the club, where Dutch Schultz was sitting in a corner booth, smoking a cigar, grinning like he'd just watched the funniest show in New York. Dutch started clapping, slow, mocking applause. "Beautiful. Lucky. Absolutely beautiful." Lucky slid into the booth, across from Dutch. He had it coming. "Oh, I know he did," Dutch said, still grinning. "But doing it here, in front of all these people, that's sending a message. That's the point," Lucky said quietly. Behind them, the bartender was calling for help. 2 waiters lifted Benny's limp body and carried him toward the back door. The cigarette girl was wiping blood off the bar with a towel. The 4 couples were gathering their things, preparing to leave. Nobody wanted to stay in a place where they'd just watched a man's face get smashed into a bar 5 times. But they'd remember. That was the point. They'd tell people, they'd describe what they saw. They'd spread the story, and every time someone heard it, they'd think twice about talking to the cops. To understand why Lucky Luciano beat Benny the Rat so brutally, so publicly, you need to understand what informants represented in 1934. Prohibition had just ended. The golden age of bootlegging was over. Gangsters were scrambling to find new revenue streams: gambling, loan sharking, prostitution, labor racketeering. The money was still there, but the methods had changed. And with those changes came new threats. The biggest threat wasn't rival gangs. It was the law. Special prosecutors, like Thomas Dewey, were building cases methodically, flipping witnesses, following money trails, using informants to tear apart criminal organizations from the inside. A snitch could do more damage than a dozen gunmen. A snitch could put you in Sing Sing for 20 years with nothing more than testimony. Lucky understood this. He'd watched Joe Masseria fall because someone on the inside talked. He'd seen Salvatore Maranzano get caught because he trusted the wrong people. The commission that Lucky had built in 1931, 5 families, equal votes, structured hierarchy, only worked if people kept their mouths shut. Omerta, the code of silence. Break that code, and the entire system collapsed. Benny the Rat had broken the code, and Lucky needed everyone in Harlem, everyone in New York, to see what happened when you broke the code. March 28, 1934. The next morning, Benny the Rat woke up in Harlem Hospital. His face was unrecognizable. His nose was shattered and had to be reset surgically. His left cheekbone was fractured. His jaw was dislocated. 3 teeth were missing. His left eye was swollen completely shut. The doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. Lucky. The irony wasn't lost on Benny. Detective William Morrison from the NYPD came to visit Benny in his hospital room. Morrison had been Benny's handler, the cop who'd convinced him to inform, who'd promised him protection, who'd told him the department would keep him safe. Morrison stood at the foot of Benny's hospital bed, looking at the wreckage of his informant's face, and felt a mixture of guilt and anger. "Who did this to you, Benny?" Morrison asked. Though he already knew the answer, Benny tried to speak. His jaw was wired shut. He managed to mumble through clenched teeth. "I fell. You fell," Morrison repeated, not believing a word, down some stairs. "Benny, we can protect you. We can put you in protective custody. We can—" Benny shook his head violently. Pain shot through his skull, but he kept shaking. "I fell. That's it. I fell." Morrison understood. Benny was more afraid of what would happen if he named Lucky Luciano than what had already happened to his face. And that fear told Morrison everything he needed to know about how much control Lucky had over the streets. "The offer stands," Morrison said quietly. "If you change your mind, if you want to testify, we'll protect you." Benny closed his good eye. Conversation over, Morrison left the hospital knowing he'd lost his informant. Not because Benny was dead, because Benny was too terrified to speak. April 1934. 2 weeks after the Cotton Club incident, Benny the Rat was released from the hospital. His face was still healing. The swelling had gone down, but the damage was permanent. His nose sat crooked on his face. His left eye drooped slightly. His jaw clicked when he chewed. Every time he looked in a mirror, he saw Lucky Luciano's message staring back at him. Benny tried to stay in New York. Tried to find work, but nobody would hire him. The bartender at the Cotton Club refused to serve him. The numbers runners wouldn't take his bets. Even the prostitutes on Lenox Avenue turned him away. Benny the Rat had become a ghost, invisible to everyone who mattered. By May 1934, Benny had left New York. Nobody knew where he went. Some said Chicago. Some said Los Angeles. Some said he went back to Poland, where his parents had come from. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was that he was gone. And the reason he was gone, the story of his face being smashed into the Cotton Club bar 5 times, spread through every borough, every neighborhood, every criminal organization in the city. The 12 witnesses told their version of the story. The bartender told his version. Dutch Schultz told everyone who'd listen. And within a month, the story had become legend. Lucky Luciano beat a snitch so badly in public that the man's face broke the bar 5 times, while a dozen people watched. And when the cops asked what happened, everyone said the same thing. "I didn't see nothing." That was the lesson. Not that snitching would get you killed. Everyone already knew that. The lesson was that snitching would get you humiliated, broken, destroyed in front of witnesses, made into a cautionary tale that people told for years. Lucky didn't kill Benny the Rat, because a dead snitch can't spread fear. A living snitch, one whose face never healed right, whose jaw clicked when he spoke, whose eye drooped every time he looked at someone, was a walking advertisement for what happened when you talked to the cops. The Cotton Club replaced the bar. Had to. The wood was cracked, stained with blood that wouldn't come out. But before they threw the old bar away, the owner took a photograph of it, the crack, the blood stain, the spot where Benny the Rat's face had hit 5 times. That photograph hung in the back office for years. New employees would see it and ask what happened, and the veterans would tell them the story. That's where Lucky Luciano made his point. March 27th, 1934. 12 people watched, nobody helped, nobody called the cops. And when it was over, Lucky walked out like he'd just finished dinner. That's the Cotton Club code. That's Harlem code. You see something, you keep quiet, you talk, you end up like Benny the Rat. For the next 6 months, not a single informant came forward in Harlem. The NYPD's network of snitches dried up completely. Detective Morrison tried to flip 3 different suspects. All 3 refused. When he asked why, they all said the same thing. I ain't trying to end up like Benny. Lucky Luciano never mentioned the incident again, never bragged about it, never acknowledged it publicly, but privately to Meyer Lansky. He said something that explained his entire philosophy. You kill a rat. 2 more show up, but you break a rat. You let him walk around with a broken face. Let everyone see what happened to him. That rat does your work for you. Every time someone thinks about talking to the cops, they remember Benny, and they shut their mouth. March 27th, 1934. The Cotton Club. 12 witnesses. 1 snitch. 5 times his face hit the bar. And the moment Lucky Luciano proved that silence isn't maintained through death threats. It's maintained through living examples. Through men like Benny the Rat, who survived, but never recovered. Who lived long enough to show everyone else what happens when you break the code. The bar cracked. Benny's face broke. And for 6 months, nobody in Harlem said a word to the police. Subscribe, enable notifications, like the video, and comment below which Bruce Lee moment surprised you most.